Welcome to the Creative Entrepreneur Show. What do we have this week, Bryon?
Hey, Rosh, happy to be here. And I want to talk about a way that I weighed multiple variables at the same time using AI. I built an array in Excel
Nice.
and let it do its thing. I want to talk about some of the details and caveats. And I might be converting. I might be moving
Uh-oh.
over to Gemini from
Uh-oh.
ChatGPT. You know, I've been a dead set in my ChatGPT ways,
Yep.
but Gemini's starting to win me back a little bit. And it started with the app on my phone. I want to talk to you a little bit
Oh,
about
interesting.
that.
Okay.
What do you have going on today?
Well, there's been a lot of news this past week, a lot of things I could pick from. One
Hmm.
thing that caught my eye is AI in marketing copy. Is it helpful or hurtful?
I can talk.
And Microsoft has a new designated competition competitor. And I want to talk about Flux AI. And there's also something about Perplexity too. So I'm going to put those three things together in just kind of a last portion of my bit. But I'll start off with the AI marketing copy when we get there.
Very good. Yeah, I'm excited to actually speak to that because we've dabbled in that world, obviously being a marketing agency, and we've had a range of success. So we can talk about that
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, yeah.
But first thing, before we really head into the meat of today's show, I want to give a congrats to you, maybe one back to me, but we've officially eclipsed 1 year of reinvigorating this show.
Absolutely. We're excited for the beginning of this month, getting
Yeah.
into August for our 1 year, then realizing, well, it was actually 2 weeks ago.
But hey, rather be safe than sorry. We can't claim a year and have it be under a year. I'd rather be on the plus side of that.
Yeah,
But
I looked it up and I actually listened to the first episode and we did pretty well. It was show number 485 and in my me and Chat GPT, well, I was saying it wrong on the very first episode between the two of us. I don't know why I kept fumbling over it. I mean, I had been using it for I don't know how long at that point, but yet so anyway, but see, that's why we have partners in crime because you could
yeah,
say, "Hey, um, that's not how you say it."
it's not
It,
the gross domestic product.
it
It's
isn't.
not Chat GD. You
But
know,
that's exactly what
GP.
I said
Yep,
the first time.
exactly. And it's just one of those marketing terms and things, from going to school and stuff that we know in economics.
Yes.
So it just supplemented its way on in. But yes, we've got you course corrected there. And also we've grown in some different ways. We
Yeah.
were just talking before the show here about how our YouTube page is starting to grow some legs.
Yes, it is. We've posted a few. We've had some intermittent posts here and there, and just like you're working on the social side, developing
Mhm.
that. We're doing some rebranding. I needed to get my workflow because I want to have us up on the YouTube channel every
Yeah,
episode, which we
right.
had not consistently. We will now. I have my system down, and I'm pretty excited about it. But I noticed that YouTube likes they're showing our podcast everywhere. So
That's
that
great.
was great, and so we're getting more and more views from that, and I should see that. We should all see that compounding over time.
Right.
So
Well,
that's
we're going to be
exciting.
putting links on the Creative Entrepreneur Show homepage to be
Yep.
able to follow us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Instagram. We're going to be sharing some highlights from the shows, maybe some reels. And it turns out we don't just have a face for radio. We're devastatingly good looking. So I encourage everyone to head on over to the YouTube page
Well,
and just drink this up. That's the
Well,
hook for
only I
everyone.
would say that's only true for 50% of us, and we'll let other people decide which one then.
I humbly claim this. So, okay. All right. So, all right, well, let's get into the meat of the show here today. So, creative entrepreneurs. So, a lot of times, if you are in the world of being creative and you've got a lot of variables and a lot of things you're putting together, maybe use AI to help you out. So, this is one of my creative pursuits. A little plug here. We are 2 months away from my band's debut show,
Hmm?
October 5th. We are going to be playing live, hell or high water. We're going to make it happen. And there's a lot of variables that go into building a show and building a set list. And, you don't want to start a show with a slow song.
Right.
You don't want to end a set with one of your maybe not better songs. Maybe you want it to be your most memorable song. There's a lot of caveats that go into the flow of a show. And
Mhm.
some of them also with the type of music we play. And you could tell behind me, the people watching on YouTube, I choose from different guitars when we have our set based on the sound of the song. So I don't want to be swapping guitars in between every songs. If I can get a chunk of songs together under one guitar, a chunk under the next one,
Mm,
that would make the flow of the show go better.
right.
So, but also it's not just me swapping guitars. We have three guitar players. So
Okay.
there's a lot of things to factor here when it comes to
Right.
building a set list and making the show be as efficient as possible. So I made an array in Excel and I listed all the songs, I listed their lengths, and I listed their, in general, their feel in terms of how upbeat they were. And I
Mhm.
listed them from 1 to 5, one being the slowest song, five being, the fastest song. And then I did, a couple other things. I listed which guitar is played on which song for each of the guitarists. And I gave it all of this information in this Excel sheet, and I gave it this very long-winded prompt of, hey, this is how I want the show to start. This is how I want it to end. I want to make sure that we get a few good, upbeat songs in a row. And then by mid show, once we've got their attention, bring a real, an emotional grabber, slower song. And it took all these caveats and it did, I will say ChatGPT did a good job. And now going into it, I had already designed what I thought was an ideal set list, but I was just very curious as to what
Mhm.
AI would do and maybe bring something, completely outside of the box. And GPT was good. They were, pretty much in line with mine. Had to make a couple changes and stuff. It understood the task perfectly, but Gemini knocked it out of the park.
Really?
So, in terms of its creativity, and I'm going to talk about this a little more in my second part of what I'm going
Okay.
to go into, but Gemini really gave me a new set list that was like, okay, very, very cool. It even omitted a couple songs based on the total length of the set,
Oh,
and
wow.
it omitted it for those songs for the right reasons. Maybe they're not as popular, maybe they're too long, but it really did a great job designing a 35-minute set. Exactly what
Nice.
I wanted, to the minute. And I was very impressed by its multimodal ability to be able to, take my text, take an Excel document, and what happens too, and I've read this, is that, and I'll go into this later about Gemini versus GPT, but Gemini is really good at taking those Microsoft products because it's got Google Sheets built into it to where it automatically translates things into Google
Mm,
Sheets or Google Docs for, Word documents. So there's
right.
one less level of interpretation there. So I'm going to go into those details in a second, but I was really blown away, and it designed me a new set list that actually I think I'm going to kind of go with.
Good.
So a whole new song to start, but I want to open up people's minds to, if you have a conundrum like this where there are so many variables and it's hard to make everybody happy at the same time, go back to your grade school math, look up what an array is, and
Mhm.
in an Excel sheet, Excel's the best way to go with this, and put all the details in there and upload it, give it your prompt, and see what it does.
Yeah.
So, have you done anything like this where you've uploaded multiple details?
Yes, I have. Especially when working with sets of data for some of my side projects that we've talked about, that's related to financial information. Just putting together, here's some results. This is where we had some information. What were the results, and then what is the trend in what seemed to be the best predictor of what we were trying to figure out.
Right.
And a lot of times there's just so much information. You just need to put it in a nice sheet and let the AI go through and say, okay, give me the
Yeah.
top three, and then share why, perhaps. Or, there's so many different ways. So when you have a lot of more data you have, more combinations there are.
Right.
And so it's having some kind of a machine go through and to pull that out. It's not always necessarily something you couldn't do. It's something you just don't want to take the time to do.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the value of it.
I've even heard it as simple as, you're sending invitations out for a party and you dump a bunch of your in contacts information and you want it to extrapolate, the first and last name and the address, and then
Yeah.
just pull that out in a separate thing. So, people, you realize that, in your job or your creative endeavors, if you've got these Excel, you spreadsheets you build up of information over time,
Yeah.
so long as the information isn't stuff that you're wanting to hold on to so tightly and you're worried about sending it up into the cloud. But if it's not proprietary information like that and you want to get some data scraping or some extrapolations of your data, ask the question. Get put it in there and ask the prompt. And the
Yeah.
worst it can do is mess it up or say no.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been pretty successful for me, and sounds like you've been using it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, to that name and address and idea that I've done exactly that for an event. So yeah,
Perfect.
it is an amazing. You can use it in your everyday life.
Yeah. All right, throwing it your way, using AI for marketing copy.
Yeah, so there was an article in Search Engine Journal about AI in marketing copy. And I believe it's just based off of one study. So obviously there will be other studies to come, but I tend to it resonated with me because it seemed about right. Everybody is talking AI, and a lot of people are afraid of AI.
Yeah.
And it tends to be a sales killer. Saying AI or that you're using AI is part of your product, and it will turn people off. So the recommendation is to, rather than talk about, or at least putting AI on the pedestal as part of your marketing, maybe in some situations, if it's important, mention it. But for the most part, just talk about the features, talk about the benefits. What are you getting out of this? And you could even use, say, rather than AI, and this is just me talking, not necessarily the article, use different types of words. Uh, Maybe we use a machine learning or
Advanced
algorithm to help
algorithm.
you.
Right. Yep.
Something that's not so scary, that says, hey, we are using technology to help you arrive to this benefit that
Right.
you want. That's much better than saying, hey, we're AI. And you probably heard them on radio or internet ads are all over the place. It's AI everything. And
Oh yeah.
it's probably tanking some people's sales, depending on the product.
Well, I'm curious about this because I want to throw it back at you. Obviously, in this house, it's Team USA, go, go, go. We've got the
Yeah,
Olympics on nonstop, and never in the last 4 years have I watched so many commercials in my life because I'm normally a streamer of different
right,
things. But every commercial I feel like is mentioning AI.
right.
And when you're watching the Olympics, and sometimes if I'm watching golf and stuff like that, it's a lot
Sure.
of times financial advisors and commercials in that kind of world. But I mean, I think I've heard Matthew McConaughey mentioning his AI for Salesforce and how it's
Right.
safe, probably 20 times in the last few days. So it's becoming a part of the marketing message. And the question is, when is the attitude towards it going to make that inflection point that we want to mention it, or is it a situation of know your audience?
Yeah.
Maybe if
I'm
your
gonna
client is, maybe they seem a little set in their ways and not open to technology, you don't mention it. But maybe if you have someone who seems technologically relevant, and maybe then you do mention it. So
yeah.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah, know your audience is important, but that's part of why we're doing what we're doing.
Mhm.
Because AI, artificial intelligence scares people.
Yeah.
And there's been so many scary things talked about it. So you
Yeah.
have this big boogeyman out there, and now everybody's using it in their marketing.
Yeah.
What do you
I know.
want?
Right.
What kind of so I mean, that's why we're doing this show, is to help creatives embrace the AI at the level
Yes.
that's going to help them. And there are places to be concerned. And that's what we'll talk about too.
Right.
We are creatives, and we have a niche in this area, and we have a long way to go. We're talking about our 1 year. We're just getting started
Agreed.
in this process to support people as they move forward and wanting to go into a more creative world with AI at their doorstep. You either embrace it or just, give up, and you don't want to do that.
Right.
You want to express your creative self.
On Friday, I was at a golf tournament with a couple friends of mine, colleagues, and one of them is a financial provider, financial advisor, my apologies. And the other one does very high-end tax auditing software for Deloitte. I mean, one of the
Yeah.
biggest. And I asked them, I was like, probably 8 or 9 tees in, and I was like, broke the AI conversation. I'm like, so what are you guys doing about AI? And their response was pretty baffling. It was everybody's talking about it and nobody's doing anything about it.
Yes. And that's why, sometimes I
Yeah.
feel like we're a little behind. We started the show a year ago, and I felt like, man, is it too late to start talking about it? Oh,
Mhm.
no, we are still early. The
Yeah.
conversation's there, but we're still very early, because the show before we started was a year and a half previous, was my last show.
Okay.
And I ended that show talking about AI and what was to
Yeah.
come.
Yep.
And I waited a year and a half, not fulfilling what I said I was going to do, but I did one better. I brought a show focused with you on board
Love it.
for that accountability and another voice. And I think we're doing a good job with it, but we are still early in this
Yeah.
game.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be just something. It's like, look back 25 years ago, and the coming of the internet. And
Yeah.
at first, some people got it, what the internet was. And then all of a sudden, by 2005, there were, every single office had to be fully,
Yep.
even more like 2000. But yeah,
Yeah.
so we're right in that kind of inflection point. So, but all right, to be moving on here. You guys, you probably have Gemini in your phone and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if most people, you open up your smartphone, your Google app is one of the main first apps that you have. I know it replaced Safari for me. I don't really use it on my iPhone. I use my Google app. And then I noticed a couple weeks ago that the main page for my Google updated. I'm like, this looks a little fancy, and I see the symbol that is the Gemini symbol in the top right. So
Hmm.
right now we're in Google search, but you just tap that little Gemini logo right next to search, and all of a sudden you've got Gemini in your phone, just like everyone, would download ChatGPT.
Right.
But I don't think people realize that it's already here. It's already in your phone. You don't have to pay for it. And it's,
Only
got all
people
the
like me pay
capabilities,
for
if
it.
not better. What was that?
I said only people like me pay for it, whatever
Yeah,
the
well, when
pro
you
version
need, yeah,
is. Yeah.
when you're using it all day long. But yeah, well, I mean, for the most part, though, this is just as capable as Omni.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring up some points here. So Gemini versus GPT. My wife for forever was always a Gemini user in this house. I say forever, like we've had AI
Yeah.
forever, but since it's been out the last year and a half, and I've been pretty dead set on GPT. And it wasn't until a couple of my traditional Google searches yielded an AI type response where I was like,
Hmm.
okay, they're blending it now. And then I was like, all right, so I know Gemini is already involved here in the process. So let me check this app a little more. And I pressed the Gemini icon, and it was right there as a good Google interface. And I decided to ask it. I said, Gemini, why are you better than GPT?
Oh, nice.
And it humbly gave some answers, but then it gave some answers as to why GPT was better. And
Hmm.
then I was very curious. I went and asked the same question to GPT. But I didn't say, why are you better than Gemini? I said, why is Gemini better than you?
Oh.
And it unfortunately had to answer. It seemed like it begrudgingly answered. But here's some of the things I just want our audience to know in case they're just dead set into ChatGPT, but maybe you want to switch over to Gemini. First of all, its integration with Google search and Google results is obviously going to be much better than GPT.
Yes.
It's a step,
And it'll keep me
step
in business.
closer and in there. So, all these companies and everything that have spent all this time making sure their Google listings are good and everything, you're still going to get your love and everything in that world,
Yep.
which is great.
Yep.
It's actually got a bit more performance power. I mean, Google's the biggest name in
Yeah.
internet, really, besides Microsoft and stuff, which I know is what's powering GPT.
Yep.
But its performance, its security, different things like that, it both GPT and Gemini claim Gemini to be better. It's already there when in terms of multimodal, and I touched on this earlier with uploading an Excel sheet. It automatically translated into a Google Sheet, so it's into its world of thinking rather than trying to translate, from one document into another thing. So it's faster in terms of being multimodal. Um, and these are the ways that it self claims to be better, but GPT won't admit it, but it claims that it's better at coding. I would let someone like you, Rosh, answer that
Mm.
more than
Yeah.
me, where I'm not in that world so much. But also, it claims to be better creatively,
Okay.
and that it just in terms of its creativity is better. And I thought I saw that in terms of the way that it creatively put together a set list for me.
Right.
I thought it definitely took my prompt a little more smart and took a lot of the smaller little variables that I mentioned. A couple songs were interplaced, and I was just like, we should have GPT, you should have listened to this prompt a little bit better, whereas Gemini did. So I might be, maybe converting over, or at least, having a 50-50 sounding board
Well,
back and
yeah.
forth.
I mean, I use different AIs for different things all the time. I mean, I'm back and forth, and it's there's usually a good reason. I mean, sometimes you just want to compare the different ones and see which
Mhm.
one they give. Maybe there's a winner most of the time, but not always. And so having almost like asking three different friends for opinions,
Right.
it
That's a
works
good
out
way.
really well that way because they have a little bit different take, although they may
Right.
be pointing in the same direction.
That's a good way to put it. I like that, the wording of it that way. So very cool. All right. Well, then, speaking of which, AI
Yeah.
competition's your next point, and that leads right
Yeah.
into.
So Microsoft has new competition, designated new competition. OpenAI is now considered their competition. In
Hmm.
other words, a little rift kind of developing there more and
Yeah.
more. Although they are connected officially, they are, of course, Copilot is in the Microsoft world, and I think that's where they're going to put their effort overall. So that was interesting. Speaking of competition, so I'll give you two other competitors. So for Google, the competitor is Perplexity. And they are doing the thing you would think a good search engine is going to do. Well, they're going to start revenue sharing with
Oh,
their
nice.
with their publishers. They have 6 partners to start off with, and they will probably be putting this into play over the next, say, 6 months or so. So that's interesting. That's when Google really started to take off, is when the ad platform started coming out. So that's good news for someone like me. Let's say, sake of argument, Perplexity ends up starting to take a big share of the search world. There's an
Hmm.
opportunity for a marketer like me to actually help my clients and make ad revenue. So that should be interesting as that develops. I think all of these platforms at some level are going to have some way to make money, whether it's through subscription or ads. And I
Right.
think there'll be a lot of good ones through ads. Last one, that Midjourney. I love using Midjourney for creating imagery. There's a new one out called Flux.ai, and I'll put the link in the show notes. If you type in Flux.ai, you may not get the Flux.ai that you think you're supposed to get. I actually got halfway through signing up another company. It's an AI company, but it uses OpenAI to do some engineering things,
Hmm.
and it's not the Flux AI you think it is. Again, I got halfway through realizing this isn't it, but I will have a direct link to it. Kind of like how I signed up for the Midjourney, the
Hmm.
other, remember, Midjourney AI.ai. It
Yes,
was
the
another
fake one.
comp,
That.
and then
Yep.
I signed up for that. I'm still a member of that one.
Still convenient
I have
enough,
to
right?
remember to turn that off because they're going to charge me for a year coming up in a few months. But anyway, Flux AI, I like it. It is fast. Now it only gives you, based on what I have not signed up, it gives you like $1 of free. So basically, you get it's like maybe like 2.5 cents per image. I'm not sure how. I have to really dig into how you pay for it, because
Right.
again, I spent my time trying to sign up for the wrong thing. But it does give you a free opportunity to play with it, and I put some of the similar prompts as I did in Midjourney, and the word that came to mind was a lot cleaner,
Mm.
is better. It's
Good.
better and cleaner in terms of sometimes sometimes you can just have a lot of stuff in the image that isn't necessarily, it can be kind of exciting and interesting, but this just took out all the stuff and really gave you really listened to the prompt, weeded out the junk, and gave you just a good image. So if you want a lot more stuff and more complex, well, then maybe Midjourney is right for you. So again, back to two friends giving
Hmm.
you a similar kind of
Right.
a point of view of how to interpret it. But if you want something that's really clean, really good with people, definitely try out Flux AI.
Very cool. Well, one update I wanted to give on one of the programs I've been using, Runway, we talked
Yeah.
about, a few weeks ago. Their
Yep.
Gen 3 just started to do the video from image.
Yeah.
Before Gen 3 was only text to video.
Oh yeah, right, right.
They
I
just
had been using
upgraded
Gen 2
that.
to do that. So no, that'll be interesting. What do you think?
Well, I'm starting to play with it. My goal is, if I'm making one that's over, 5 or 10 seconds,
Hmm.
that to be able to expand it longer, but to continue to prompt it. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that that's included in there. So I will have
Okay.
an update next week on that, because I just got the email earlier this week saying that that's starting. But
Oh,
I
great.
have
I,
used
I
a
had
couple
not seen
Gen
that.
2 ones already on my band's promotion stuff. Been pretty cool.
Very nice. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yes, very, very good. All right. Well, yeah, we are we're up on YouTube. We're going to be up on Facebook and Instagram this week. Please check out our website, creativeentrepreneursshow.com, to get those links for those pages and see us in all the different ways. And again, if anybody wants to be interviewed on this show and you do things specific to AI, reach out to us. And or if you want any topics covered, just send us an email. So yeah, we're happy to go over any of those. But until then, we're going to continue to give you updated information.
Yeah, two creative guys talking AI.